Hi, I'm here with Kate from London School of Economics, where I work in the library, and my name's Debbie. Kate, can you just introduce yourself and what you do at our university, please?
Sure. Hi. As Debbie said, I'm Kate. I'm an assistant professor in international relations at the London School of Economics. And so, what that means is that I do research that looks at what happens when society is in crisis and experiencing hard times and how we deal with that.
So, obviously, talking about a country in crisis and in hard times, obviously, Britain has been in crisis because of the COVID pandemic in the last year or so. And our class are just starting on the project on looking at, how their feelings and what they went through over the last year. And I've been reading your report. So basically, the questions I'm going to ask you about that report is kind of explain to these year five students, what that report's about and sort of the questions that you've been asking, what our country's been through. And I was wondering, when you talk about something called a crisis narrative. What do you mean when you talk about a narrative with regard to something like a pandemic? Because I don't really understand what you mean by that.
Right, that's a great question. Thank you. So, a narrative is, in essence, a way of telling a story that takes a point of view. So, it doesn't tell us every single thing that happened, but instead it focuses on what is important to explain and understand about what happened. And it helps us simplify things and express how we feel about them, as well as what we think about them.
So in a narrative, there can be different points of view. So like I'm thinking of there's a book that my son reads called the Tom Gates Diaries.
Mhm.
He writes a diary, but you sometimes get a sense that his parents or his teacher have a different point of view because of letters or school reports. Is that what the kind of thing you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the book, Tom is producing a narrative about his experience, what's important to him, how he is experiencing the world. And then you're getting some reflections or little hints about what the narratives and points of view of other people in his life might be. And then if you sort of want to think about that at a bigger scale, if you put all of those together, we might get sort of a narrative that maybe they share a little bit about everything that's happening and going on in their lives.
So thinking about narratives and thinking about what we remember. So when we entered, when COVID first became an issue, like
Yeah.
an issue, and we went into that first lockdown in mid-March,
Yeah.
what are the images, what are the things that you remember about that period?
Oh, I remember lots of things. There was a lot happening. I remember there being long lines at airports and train stations as people tried to get home to their families before lockdown, and also being sad and a little disappointed if that wasn't possible and they had to stay where they are in order to help keep people safe. I bet everyone remembers a lot of pictures of very tired medical workers, doctors, nurses, care workers, cleaners in the personal protective equipment, so the mask and the gowns, who were working really, really long hours to try and help the people who were sick. I remember walking through my neighborhood and seeing the rainbows that people had colored and put up in their windows to show their support and to thank people who are working in the NHS, National Health Service. I remember seeing on the news that there were temporary hospitals being built just in case there was not enough room and equipment in the hospitals we already had for the people who might become sick. I remember watching the government on the news every night telling us how many people had become sick and unfortunately how many people had died. And I also remember seeing lots of photos of people talking to their parents or their grandparents on the phone, especially through windows or outside at care homes, because they weren't able to visit them in order to keep them safe. There was a lot going on.
There was a lot. I mean, there still is a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah.